In the last days of the Roman Republic and the long-burning centuries of the Roman Empire, a strange and dangerous truth shaped the destiny of the West. The empire was not held together by loyalty, patriotism, or the glory of Rome. It was held together by gold. Roman soldiers, the most feared military force of the ancient world, marched not for the Senate, not for the people, and not even for the eagle standards they carried into battle. They marched for pay, they fought for promise, they killed for fortune. And slowly, as gold became their true master, their loyalty slipped away from Rome itself and toward the men who paid them. This hidden psychological shift, from patriotism to personal profit, became one of the quiet engines of Rome's collapse. The story begins with the earliest Roman armies, made of simple farmers who would leave their fields to defend their homeland. These were not professionals. Their reward was honor, not salary. But as Rome expanded, wars grew longer, borders stretched farther, and armies could no longer return home in time for the harvest. The Republic realized that if it wanted an empire, it needed full-time soldiers, and full-time soldiers required full-time pay. This created something Rome had never seen before, a professional military class that lived, ate, and survived on wages. Once that happened, the psychology of war changed forever. A Roman soldier was no longer a citizen temporarily defending his land. He was a career fighter whose identity, future, and loyalty depended on whoever controlled his income. Roman generals recognized this weakness immediately. Some of them exploited it brilliantly. Instead of teaching soldiers to die for Rome, they taught them to live for gold, gifts, promotions, and rewards. No general understood this better than Gaius Marius, who reformed the army and opened its ranks to the poor. Men who owned nothing, had nothing, and dreamed of loot as their only escape from misery. When these men joined, they swore loyalty to their commander, not to the Senate. They viewed their general as a provider, a father, and a source of fortune. Rome had accidentally created armies whose loyalty could be bought, and bought away. Once gold replaced patriotism, the empire's foundations began to crack. Soldiers started choosing sides based on who promised them more wealth. When Julius Caesar marched across the Rubicon, it wasn't because he believed in noble ideals of justice or freedom. He walked because his soldiers walked with him, and his soldiers walked because he made them rich. Caesar gave them land, treasure, and bonuses. He shared the spoils of wars openly. To his legions, he wasn't a politician. He was a living river of gold. Rome belonged to whoever controlled the purse strings of the military. This dangerous pattern only deepened in the imperial era. The Roman army became the single biggest expense of the empire. Emperors lived in fear of them. A soldier could elevate a man to the throne, or drag him from it. Generals with wealthy estates or access to conquered treasure now had more influence than Rome's political institutions. Some emperors didn't rise to power because of birthright, they rose because they offered the right price. The empire entered a dark age when loyalty was auctioned and emperors were made and destroyed in the span of days. Soldiers began expecting larger and larger payments. They demanded gold for protection, gold for silence, gold for loyalty. They became not just guardians of the empire, but its loudest creditors. In frontier regions, the situation grew even more dangerous. Soldiers posted far from Rome learned the terrifying truth that no one could control them. They lived in their own world of danger and violence. They guarded borders against Germanic tribes, Parthians, and endless waves of invaders. To survive, they created their own local economies, trading favors, selling protection, and sometimes even making deals with the enemy. They didn't care about distant senators debating in marble halls. They cared about whether their commander kept their pay on time. A delayed payment could spark rebellion. A lost shipment of gold could lead to mutiny. The empire's most powerful institution now depended on coins traveling across thousands of miles. A single disruption could turn soldiers against the very state they were built to defend. Psychologically, gold served another purpose. For many soldiers, wealth became a symbol of honor and masculinity. Their identity wasn't built on Roman virtues anymore, it was built on how much treasure they had earned in battle. They collected rings, foreign weapons, captured armor, and exotic coins. These items became trophies of dominance, proof that they had conquered lands and crushed enemies. But the deeper truth was that these trophies were also emotional shields. The life of a Roman soldier was brutal. Endless marching, sleepless nights, starvation, disease, and the constant shadow of death. Gold gave them meaning. It made their suffering feel worthwhile. It convinced them that everything they endured would eventually lead to a prosperous retirement. It was hope disguised as metal. And yet, that hope was often a lie. Many soldiers never lived long enough to enjoy the rewards they fought for. Some were killed before receiving the wealth they were promised. Others discovered that emperors who desperately needed money reduced their pensions or paid them in devalued coins mixed with copper instead of silver. When a soldier who had risked everything realized that Rome had cheated him, his loyalty vanished instantly. This sense of betrayal fueled the rise of rebellions, assassinations, and desertions. The army that once protected Rome slowly became the predator that fed on it. By the 3rd century, the empire entered a terrifying era, now known as the Crisis of the Barracks Emperors. In just 50 years, more than 20 emperors rose and fell, nearly all chosen not by the people or the Senate, but by the military. Soldiers were choosing rulers based on who offered the largest rewards. And once an emperor's treasury ran dry, the soldiers simply killed him and picked another. Rome's throne became a marketplace, its emperors disposable. Loyalty had become a commodity. In the final centuries, as Rome struggled with inflation, declining trade, and a shrinking treasury, the government could no longer pay soldiers in pure silver. Coins were debased until they were nearly worthless. Soldiers, furious and frightened, began taking payment in land, food, livestock, and whatever valuables they could seize. Many turned into independent warlords, carving their own mini-kingdoms from the dying empire. When the Goths, Vandals, and Huns pressed against the borders, soldiers fought half-heartedly. Why die for a state that could no longer pay? Why defend an emperor who had no gold left to offer? The final whisper of the empire's downfall came when Roman soldiers began selling entire provinces to invading tribes. For gold. For survival. For the same currency that had once built the world's greatest military machine. In the end, the Roman Empire did not fall only because of barbarians, corruption, or political chaos. It fell because its soldiers stopped believing in Rome and started believing in gold. Wealth became their flag. Fortune became their faith. And when the gold ran out, so did their loyalty. The empire that ruled the world for centuries collapsed under the weight of its own hidden pay system. A system that turned warriors into mercenaries and patriotism into a transaction. Rome was built with swords, but it was destroyed by coins, and the soldiers who followed whoever jingled the loudest purse.